بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك يا رب الكريم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu again. So folks, jazakumullahu khaira. So just a quick announcement, which inshallah if someone reminds me I'll make at the end as well, for those who are late to get to the lesson. So there's a couple of announcements. The first announcement is that the new time, the new time starting from next week all the way until the end of the academic year, which is the end of June, the last Wednesday before Ramadan. The time from next week will be 8 o'clock BST. So wherever you are at the moment, it's an hour 15 earlier from where you are. So wherever you are right now, we will start 1 hour 15 minutes early than what it is right now. It will be 8 p.m. BST, and you probably receive something like that to show your localized time. So remember that. So that's the first thing. That's how it's going to be now for the next 6-7 lessons, however many we have left, 7-8 lessons. The second announcement is I can't keep saying favorite people, because obviously Cheadle have to be my favorite people, but you know that I have a favorite people, and they are the Malaysians, and you know that they're my favorite people, right? So inshallah I'm going to be with those guys in Malaysia and KL. The next 3 lessons inshallah will be in with the KL team, so I look forward to that as well. That's the main thing. 8 o'clock from next week, number 1. Number 2, the notes up to date, pretty much up to date, are all now on the forums, but they haven't been given a check by me. What does that mean? Well, I normally read through the transcribed notes after they've been produced by the LP transcribing team, which is a large process, to be honest, heavy process, and I read through it if I believe that a few brackets might be needed, a few extra clarificatory notes, some references, something useful. I change very little, frankly, okay? And of course, if I notice I made some kind of mistake, then as I've told you before, the mistake will then be clarified and corrected in those notes. That's why I said to all students, it is essential that you are part of the mailing list, part of the forums, and that you are looking at the notes regularly. So you'll see that there's a note there which says that these have not been checked by myself. They will be checked, probably not in the next month, by the way, because I'm just very busy at the moment, but they will be checked, and when they've been checked, then they can be taken and memorized properly and understood. So those are the main announcements. Score? Don't blag it. Just tell me the score. No. Seriously, someone said no. Don't blag like you're not checking, because I know you know what the score is. I need to know, thingy, because you see, it's not a short-term thing, it's a long-term thing. Okay, this lesson has okay. I mean, look.
Who find out that is?
What do you mean who to? He'd have a heart attack if it was anyone else. Okay. The way I look at this class is generally how we should look at life and certain people playing aspects of that life. It's not about a flash in the pan. You just got to make sure you keep going, studying regularly, and just keep going. You've got to make sure you revise, because to be able to defend what you've got from knowledge is essential. It's not about just making a point, isn't it? At an opportune moment, about scoring an easy goal. Do you know what I'm saying? All right. The one thing that you don't want to do is that when you get to the key moment, it's a slip up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because because slipping up and then starting to then fall back. Yeah. That's not what this deen's about. This deen's about istiqamah and sabr and quality all the way through, not flashes in the pan. You know what I'm saying? And it's about taking an opportunity, because you never know when that opportunity may come back again. So I'm saying, these opportunities to study are very rare, all right? And far be it from me to be doing any subliminal messaging or anything like that, right? So jazakumullah khair, everybody. Let's start this new section then. That section is no, it's not a new section. It's the continuation of, what did we say? We're on page 200, and in the notes, in the sharh, we are on page 236, right? The Arabic text that is relevant to that is the next page. Yeah, page 2. من خف وجورب صفيق ونحوهما وعلى عمامة لرجل محنكة أو ذات ذؤابة وعلى خمر نساء مدارة تحت حلوقهن في حدث أصغر. So during the translation on page 2 of the notes, okay, so during minor ritual impurity, alright, so just after you've broken wudu, now we're talking about, alright, one can wipe over, oh, by the way, why does it say minor ritual impurity? Okay, so let's say if it was major ritual impurity, why can't we wipe on it in major? Because you need to do ghusl. Just stating the obvious, yeah? Okay, just so that you know why they said minor. Because if it was major, you need to do ghusl, you need to wash everything, so you can't be wiping over anything. Although there is an exception that's going to come towards the end of the chapter, alright? So, during minor ritual impurity, okay, and again, just another interesting point, that's what's minor, what's impurity in Arabic? With respect to ritual impurity. Hadath, good. And how do we differentiate the two of them? Large and small? Correct. Hadath asghar and akbar. Small hadath and a major hadath. Okay? From an Arabic translating point of view, just so that you can see, just so that students, if you have a look at the text, you'll be able to see that the Arabic has hadathin asghar right at the end of the sentence. Okay? Whereas we in our translation put it right at the beginning. Because ours is a rendering and not necessarily a translation literal, because literally it is far more difficult to translate. The point of a translation really, and it's interesting, I'm just sharing some thoughts with you that from an academic point of view, translators and scholars, they're always faced with the challenge of how do you faithfully translate something to an English speaking crowd? And there was always this idea for years and years that translation means exactly that. It's got to be exactly translating, so there's nothing is lost in translation, literal translation. Then this idea came that, look, you know what it is? It's about the message, it's about the meaning. And so therefore people felt a bit guilty applying that kind of approach to the word translation. So the new word that was introduced was rendering. So it was rendered into English by so-and-so. And here is a rendition of, and I have to say I'm a massive fan of that. But what I think what should happen now, the next stage of this development of this kind of art, is that we should actually be confident enough to say translation itself should be rendering. That there shouldn't need to be another phrase. That we should say the translation of this verse is this. Or the translation of this hadith is this. And if it's the other way around, broken up and down, we took a bit of artistic license, yani, with some words and phrases, then so be it. That's a translation. And if we want to be super careful because we're trying to prove an academic point for some reason, then we will say, but literally translated, it means this. Do you know what I'm saying? So I want to try myself move away from the concept of rendering and rendition. But this is very much a rendition. Yep. That's why we've put the minor ritual impurity at the beginning. Anyway, during minor ritual impurity, one can wipe over, other than all the socks that we said, leather socks, thick socks, and anything similar to them. So we did that last week, yeah? And number 2, a man's turban which loops under the neck or possessing tails, which we're going to see. And then number 3, female headscarves which wrap around the neck, So that's the text. Let's get into the notes then. So we finished off with nahwihima, similar to the khuf, similar to the sock, and as we said yesterday, that means boots as well. What we're talking about? We're talking about anything and every a taught position of the class. Now the taught position of the class is that we're happy to wipe over leather socks, which is the khuf, any variation of that leather sock in any kind of manner, be it a cotton sock or be it a Gore-Tex sock or synthetic cloth sock, and in addition to that, something which is of a shoe type, also permissible, boot, shoe, XYZ, as long as all of those that we just mentioned cover the obligatory aspects of the foot, meaning from the toes all the way to the ankle, meaning it has to cover the ankle as if it was literally the water washing that part itself. So that's what it needs to be. So obviously normal shoes, we're not happy with that, you know, normal kind of shoes. But boots, maybe we should stop using the word shoes as a result of that, but boots is something which is no problem with whatsoever. Okay, These are all included in this area. We discussed last week, and I don't want to go back over it again, the differences between the scholars. Some of them really don't like thin socks, and some don't like water going through, and some don't want any tears. And Sheikh Uthaymeen has got even more brave kind of opinions, where he's saying, look, it doesn't matter about the cut, it's about how much it covers of the foot, and majority covered, then that's good enough, and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of kind of stuff out there. I'm just saying that, look, generally if you can avoid torn socks, great. If they are torn, it's not a problem. And if they are made of cloth, then that's not a problem. And in terms of the thickness of socks, did we talk about thickness? Really?
You mentioned it being warm.
Yeah, we mentioned it being warm, and we mentioned that even thin socks these days can be warm. But did we not get an opportunity to talk about that? Because that's a shame, because I've put pictures up for the turban. I would have loved to have put up pictures for the types of sock. But I did that. But maybe I'm thinking something else. Because I want to show you guys the one sock that I think in the world that would be absolutely impossible to wipe over. Okay? It's what I call the Arab sock. Yeah? The Arabs wear this most ajib, bestie sock in human history. Okay? If you're an Arab and you're feeling embarrassed right now, then good. Okay? Arab socks are basically tights. Women's tights. Have you got one, Shaz? Wallahi, I type in Arab dress sock. Make me laugh my brains out and say Google recognize. Oh my God, there it is. Look at the screen. Now, no human being on the planet other than Arabs I've ever seen wear this, by the way. Okay? With all my love and respect to every Arab on the planet, I'm saying I've never seen any man wear these socks. But for Arabs, I don't know. Any other countries want to lay a stake, lay a claim? I don't know what's happening there. But it's a woman's tight. It's like, I don't know, what's that? What's that girl? Is it 80 denier? 100 denier? Huh? I don't know. Denier is the thickness scale used to measure tights. You see, I know many things. Yeah. I used to get asked by many women, is this denier good enough? I used to say, that's absolutely fabulous. It's a great denier, that. Anyway, so what you're looking at there is basically just like, even I feel embarrassed to call out stockings. Even the word stocking, by the way, I'll tell you what's something interesting from my language point of view. If you look at Old English, right, the word tight is not tights. This is not a very academic statement, but this is what I believe, and if someone knows better, then please correct me. I don't think tights is as old as the word stocking. And certainly the word stocking appears much more in English literature and dare I say Western literature far earlier than the word tights. Allah Alam. And I think the reason I make that point is that even today when you say the word stocking, you think of thick, isn't it? Or something thicker, cloth and so on. Whereas when you say tights, it's not the immediate thing that comes to mind. And generally, even though of course both words can be used either way. So what I want to say to you is that is a joke, all right? Because that's not keeping nothing warm. It's not keeping anything. It has no function. It has, I got no idea what that's doing. I have no idea. So the kind of sock that we're talking about in terms of thin is the thin sock that everyone wears. Oh, days. Oh my gosh, that's all Shazad's for. Why give me some rubbish that doesn't even work? It's not even on.
You're kidding, man. Give you one job to do.
Honestly, man, you're so useless, I swear.
I
just want to say, everybody, okay, for the first time in 2 years, Shazad decides to swap the machine that we used to record the class. Okay, first time in 2 years. I've been using the other one for 2 years consistently. And you know what I said? I said to Shaz, I go, Shaz, where's the normal machine? And Bob goes, he didn't want to use a normal machine. He didn't want to know. What kind of statement was that? He didn't want to use a normal machine. So he didn't want to use a normal machine. He put some of the bakwas in front of me here now. Okay, yeah. He put some of the rubbish in front of me, yeah, which I have no idea how it works, right?
Listen,
I think it's now recording.
How long have you been using that Adderall?
No, hold on. That's different. That's different. Wait. We know this Adderall is old. I mean, it's old. This is old as me. We've had this boy for a long time. But that's not the point, is it? Every class has its own yani thing, right? And we've had that machine here. I just pressed the button. This one was dead.
No,
Turn it
Yeah. No, the other one's already turned on.
No, because
you know what happens?
We had it
when
on.
Nadif is not here, yeah, always falls apart.
We had it.
Shahzada thinks that it all revolves around him. But you know, when he was away, was there any problems? Huh? And the second he comes back, and Nadif, Yani Miskeen, he's busy.
You know what it is that, as we say, trust no one, yeah? We gave him one job to do and he couldn't even press the button. Wow, but then the thing goes on standby, then he blames it as being off.
And he's seen it as well.
And he's seen it as well, Qasam. Right, okay, where are we, man? You're ruining my flow, Qasam. Socks. So thin socks is no problem, yeah? Like normal thin socks, like your Pringle kind of socks and your normal kind of Marks and Spencer's BHS, that kind of sock, yeah? So that's fine. And everything on top of that is fine. And the shoes are all fine, boots and all the rest of it, as long as it goes above the ankle, we're happy with that. So now let's move to, and you know what it is? Actually, the other thing I was going to say, the other thing which I was going to say, my dear brothers and sisters, yeah, I mean, it's coming later on, but it's coming so much later on. Only God knows, Daniel, when we get to it. But I just want to say that when it comes to wiping, all right, on these shoes, socks, khufs, and so on, the sunnah, and there is difference of opinion on this issue as well, okay? But the sunnah, and Allah knows best, is to have your hands, that they're not meant to be soaking, they're meant to be just damp, okay? They're not meant to be made specifically damp, it's just a normative damp, yep? And they're damp, and you will put them both on the top of the feet from the toes, and you will wipe upwards at the same time. That's the key point. So wiping at the same time from the toes all the way up to the kind of this part of the shin, you know, that part of the shin. So one wipe and that's it. Nothing underneath, nothing around the sides, no twice or three times, just one wipe and that's it, simultaneously. If there's a reason that you can't do both at the same time, for some reason you're trying to balance or something like that, then that's permissible. That's okay to do the right and then the left. But in principle, it's done at the same time. But we're going to come to that properly in detail later on.
We should give a proper demo.
We should give a proper demo, yeah? Yeah. Turn the camera at Bob's and Shaz wants to make a demo of wiping on the socks. He's quiet now, I was saying, yeah? Right, so... and then Imam al-Hajjaj alayhi rahmatullah, he says وَعَلَى عِمَامَةٍ لِلرَّجُلِ, and then number two, one can wipe over a man's turban, alright? So Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, he goes, what does that mean? It means it's permissible to wipe over the turban upon the imama. And the word imama comes from يعني ما يعمم على الرأس, which is surrounding the head, basically. Remember, am, by the way, means something very general, something very wide. Yani when we say the awam means the masses. Yeah, when you speak to the awam, we're speaking to the masses, the majority of people. So it's like the wide masses. So when you say something is am, the opposite of it is khas. Yeah, so something which is specific, and then am is something which is general. So you can understand, even linguistically, it means that which is general and big and surrounding and unrestricted. So from an Arabic point of view here, though, specifically its meaning is to circulate or to be around the actual head, and it's everyone knows. Now, how is it, or what's the evidence for this being permissible? The hadith of Mughira ibn Shu'bah, again, radiallahu anhu, that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, مَسَحَ بِنَاصِيَتِهِ وَعَلَى الْعِمَامَ وَعَلَى خُفَيْهِ. Hadith which has been narrated by Imam Muslim, and there are no other versions of this in Bukhari as well. What did the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam do? He narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he wiped on his forehead, meaning his forelock, okay? He wiped on his forelock, which is just a little bit of hair which is showing. Actually, I'm going to show you in a picture. Sometimes it's like this, okay? So he wiped like that, and then his imama, so the rest of the, meaning that it didn't come off. So whatever hair was showing, he wiped on that, then carried on to the imama, okay? And upon his khufs as well. He wiped upon his two leather socks as well. Alright. Now, interestingly, which is nice, this point, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says sometimes this imama, turban, okay, has also been referred to in the texts as the khimar. Now we're going to come to what the khimar means in a minute. But the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, again in Sahih Muslim, masaha ala khuffayn wal khimar. He wiped over his two leather socks and the khimar. Now obviously, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is not wearing a hijab, right? Or a headscarf or a veil. So here, as in the language which indicates it, the word khimar actually means يعني al-imama. يعني al-imama. This hadith has been narrated by Imam Ahmad. Okay. And Shaykh Uthaymeen makes an interesting point. He goes, if we did not with certainty say that the word khimar means imama, if we didn't, it would then be permissible for us to wipe upon the ghutra. The ghutra is, you know, that checkered flag. The checkered, is it even checkered? It is, isn't it? Yeah, the checkered cloth the Saudis wear. Yeah? You know what I'm talking about, yeah? The head kind of scarf thing. Is there a name for that? They call it the Palestinian scarf, right? But you know what I mean. So the red kind of red and white version, the Saudi one, I'm sure everyone knows, okay? So that's obviously their own, that's their national dress, okay? And his point, Shaykh Uthaymeen's point, alayhi rahmatullah, is that if this really was a khimar as in the absolute language, well, of course he's not wearing a hijab, so it must be some kind of cloth which is loose hanging. And therefore, he said that it's important, and this is important, for us to restrict the meanings of the words when it's obvious that they need to be restricted, because if we didn't, then it would be permissible then for literally someone who's wearing one of those headscarves just to wipe over that. And then by extension, it would be a lot easier, and we're going to come to this next week, alright, then for someone to argue that you might be permissible to wipe over a normal hat. Just a normal hat. Because then it becomes more of an issue, anything which covers the head. So we're going to discuss that part later. But basically what Shaykh Uthaymeen says that no, it is referring to the imama. It's referring to the imama. Now, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, why did Imam al-Hijawi mention men? Why did he just not say turban? Anyone? Yes, avoid confusion, I guess. But there's actually, because actually what Shaykh Uthaymeen says, wants to say, is that it is a condition for wiping over a turban that it is for a man. Because if a woman is wearing a turban, then that straight away is impermissible. It is impermissible for a woman to wear a turban, outside of course. Inside she can do what she wants, yeah? She wants to do some kind of freak show behavior, and she can do that, knock herself out, yeah? But outside in the public, she can't be wearing a turban, alright? فلا يجوز للمرأة المسح على العمامة لأن لبسها لها حرام لما فيه من التشبه بالرجال, because it has تشبه. This is the imitation of men. Remember that we said that the concept of tashabbuh, we covered that in detail, isn't it? Is when you copy people in something which is completely specific to them. And we know that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as Shaykh Uthaymeen here mentions, وَقَدْ لَعْنَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم الْمُتَشَبِّهِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ بِالنِّسَاءِ وَالْمُتَشَبِّحَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ بِالرِّجَالِ. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam cursed those men who imitate women, like transgender, that kind of stuff. What they're called? Transvestite. Yeah? And then what's the other way called? Same, I think. Isn't it? When the woman dresses up like a man and whatever. I don't think they're called transvestite. Cross-dresser. Maybe. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Transvestite is both ways? And what's cross-dresser? Both ways as well?
General term. Cross-dresser is a general term.
General term, that's more innocent?
Yeah, well, innocent,
It is a debatable point, so okay, so transvestite, there's no...
Yes, you put both ways.
Right, okay. I mean, just so that you know, that obviously the words are different in Arabic, but not because it's a different word. just from the grammatical point of view. Al-mutashabbihin is always going to be used for men. Al-mutashabbihat is going to be used for women. But the actual principle is mutashabbih, the one who is imitating or resembling another person. And this is hadith narrated by Bukhari, of course, supremely authentic, and one which needs to be very carefully looked at. It's very important that we understand that. Now, obviously, I don't want to get into this debate because we talked about clothing and tashabbuh before. We spent a lot of time on this concept, but it's really about something which is exclusively aimed at someone. Now, you might argue for trousers. Are women allowed to wear trousers? Okay, trousers. Are trousers something which are considered to be exclusively male? And this is interesting because in principle you might have thought that that's exactly what they are, that women are I'm trying to think of a time in society where it was exclusively understood that, you know, trousers are purely for men and women are skirts or dresses or so on and so forth. See the Victorian age was when that trousers didn't exist for women. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Sure. In this country, maybe. The problem, of course, is that the sirwal, in principle, is something in the foreign countries to not be a particular gender-oriented dress. Does that make sense? Okay, and even more so when the woman outside is never seen with that anyway. I want you to know that in principle, a woman would generally be wearing the jilbab, meaning something which is an overdress anyway. All right. So I want to say to you, this is the issue becomes really difficult when you have women in this country, Muslim women, who are not wearing a jilbab, something which is a long flowing dress which is covering whatever else they're wearing underneath, whether that itself be a skirt, trousers, tracky bottoms, or whatever whatnot. Okay. Now I do want to say that yes, there is difference of opinion of what are the parameters of jilbab. Okay, does it have to be a big flowing dress, or can it be some kind of secondary clothing on top? I want to say to you that it is a minority position that would say that a woman could be going out in public with only one garment effectively on her legs, if that makes sense. Yes, like what I want to say is that it's the minority position. It's not. I don't want to come out and say there's an ijma' against it, because there isn't. I'll tell you why. For example, think immediately of a woman who goes out in a very flowing skirt. A thick flowing skirt. Thick flowing baggy skirt. Or dress, I should say. When I say skirt, sorry, not skirt, dress. Okay? So that, for all intents and purposes, you would have absolutely no idea if there is second or third trousers, not whatever, whatnot. It's playing as good a role as any jilbab would. You see where the problem is? That's why we can't very strictly say it's about having layers and so on. More, it's about the appearance in general. So if a woman is walking around in tight trousers, okay, or jeans or whatever, where that is literally all it is, and you are seeing those literally trousers, meaning there's no other cloth or anything like that, that's where it gets problematic. It gets problematic there for me, in my personal opinion, much more from a hijab point of view as opposed to a tashabbuh point of view. But that's also there as well, because that's exactly how men would wear their jeans and trousers, and that's where it might become super specific. So Allahu A'lam, it's something which there's no doubt, there's a lot of doubt in. I want to say that basically there's no doubt that women wearing trousers in the manner that men do, certainly without a jilbab on top, is in a risky, doubtful areas, and many of the ulama will consider that to be something impermissible for women to walk out publicly. But anyway, the point here is that the imama has no connection whatsoever. It's the easiest thing in the world, because the imama is not covering all the hair anyway, and it's not permissible for a woman to go outside and not cover her hair. So a woman wearing an imama is doing many things wrong, okay? So that's why you can't wipe over. It would not be permissible for a woman to do that, because the action is haram. Sheikh Mahmoud Mukhtar Shunkiti says there's a second scenario. There are two scenarios when a woman would wear a turban. One, because she's cross-dressing or sick in the head or whatever, yeah, okay? She's, doing something haram. And the second reason would be what? Common sense. No, not really that. Sorry?
Said hair loss for
No, no. Huh? What? Sina? Espionage. Espionage. Have you had a long day, bro? Yeah. A&E has been hard today, bro, man. You've had some crazy cases today, huh? What's the second reason? Obvious reason. Same reason for pretty much every single issue in fiqh. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Huh? Okay, maybe that's a third option, but that's not a realistic one. But similar. Yeah, to save herself. There's a need. There's a problem. She's dying of cold. She's in the Arctic. She needs to cover her head with anything that's available or whatever, whatnot. Okay, meaning that there's a darura, right, for her to do that. Now, what's interesting is that then, if she wears it, tell me the rulings. She wears something which is a turban. What would the rulings be? So is it haram? No. A turban by its nature can't cover the hair. Let's say it's a fixed one. She's put it on to save her head from basically freezing or whatever. Tell me the rulings now that come into play.
Wait till the necessity is finished.
So first of all, start from the very beginning. Permissible to wear it, whereas previously it. Good. That's the most obvious point. She's permissible for her to pick this up, put it on her head to protect her head, even though it's haram because of durura. There's only one other ruling we're caring about. What's that? What's that ruling? Whether it's permissible to wipe over it. What do you think? So I don't know of any scholar that allows that wiping, and it doesn't make sense either. The wiping is a ruling of normality which is based upon one's normative use of that garment. Here, okay, it's being used not in its normal sense. It's not being used in its normal manner, etc., etc., etc. So it's not permissible to wipe over it. Now we can also put another caveat on that. Let's say that she literally couldn't wipe her head because of XYZ reason, can't reach or can't do something, can't get it off her head, for example, then that would be permissible. Again, that would be another level of durura that would come in. So I just want you to understand the concepts. Anyway, and now for the imama, there are a number of things which are obviously conditioned, the same as for the khuf. So it needs to be pure, and I mean intrinsically pure. The cloth itself must be pure, and it must be mubah, meaning it can't be something which is haram, can't be something which is stolen, or something which has pictures on it, or made of silk, or anything like that. Okay, and Sheikh also says that Sheikh Imam al-Hajawi has mentioned the word rajul, which means man. But Imam al-Hijawi wasn't intending by the statement man to say that a boy can't do it. Alright? So he said that a boy can. And boy we mean baligh. Okay? Because the non-baligh is irrelevant anyway. Okay? But if a child was going to do it, it's not a problem. A baligh, a post-pubescent boy, and a man, all of them are permissible. All of them are, it's allowed. It's allowed. Okay, right. Now, Sheikh then goes, muhannakatin aw dhat thu'ab. There are now two conditions which the Hanbalis put. Either or, that this needs to be there in the turban. Either the turban needs to be one which is muhannak, which comes under Shaykh Uthaymeen. He said that it must come taht al-hank, which is this area here. Basically means under the neck. Okay, so we're talking underneath here, right? Or it needs to be dhat zu'aba, meaning it must have either a tail or two tails, or a long piece which is in the manner of a tail. Maybe some of them they kind of like a pony's tail. They kind of it hangs like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's hanging where one part is longer, and it's trailing at the back. So I'm gonna show you a couple of pictures now. Okay, so let's have them up, Shats. I think you didn't do it in order. I did it. You haven't got it in order, have you?
Yeah, that's in order now.
No.
1, 2.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That's in order now. Yes. Okay, go to the first one. Okay, so this is the perfect one we're talking about. This is muhannak and dhat du'abatin. All right. If you look closely, yeah, you can see it clearly. Yes. So the two characteristics here is that it has come underneath the chin, and that's normally done to keep it in place in general, okay, especially if moving around and working and stuff. And you can obviously see the tail. All right, we'll show you some more versions of that. So the next one I think shows it a bit more clearly because of the color. Yeah, so this is another version, okay. This is the Hausa. All right, you know, by the way, the first guy, he's from the family of Tore. I just couldn't resist that, that's all. If you go back to the first picture, I think this may be Yahya Touré's grandfather or something. And we are big supporters. I chose this picture specifically. This is dedicated to all Liverpool fans around the world. You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. This is Mamadou Touré. Okay? Right. See, he's from Ivory Coast. All right, Hausa tribe. Yep, you done that one, Shaz. Yep. Okay. So now we're looking at a different one. Now, the reason I chose this one, this is obviously not African based, not Sudani based or anything like that. But this one, you can see the clear. This is a lot of our lot wear this. Okay, Indians, Pakistanis wear this as well. You can see clearly the tail. This is a classic imama. All right, and I want you to know that Sheikh Uthaymeen, the reason why. Why the Hanbalis are making these as two conditions is because that is how the turbans used to be. That's the point here. The turbans at that time used to be most of the time, because it's not just a fancy thing of, you know, whatever. Okay, you could get mega fancy ones that you could show off, but it has a function as well. So you would have your turban, it would be underneath your neck, and then the loose part would come and you could then cover your mouth with it to, you know, to deal with the dust. Think of that archetypical picture of Lawrence of Arabia. You know what I'm saying? The one that you've seen, you know, in all posters. That is underneath there, and he would often just lift it up and then, you know, cover his mouth with it. Now here, the reason I mention this is that this is, I just didn't have time because I was late, but this chap here, if you look, it's right on the edge of his hairline. Right on the edge of his hairline. And many of these turbans, they go back further and they just expose like a little triangle of the hairline. That is what we're talking about when we say that the Prophet ﷺ, he wiped on his forehead, his forelock, yani his nasiyah, right? And then the rest. That's what it means. Okay, folks? Right, carry on. This one here, bring it down a little bit. Yeah, the reason I showed this one is that this doesn't have the obvious big tail, does it? All right, but that there is tail enough. That one there is tail enough. Again, according to the Hanbalis. According to the Hanbalis. Let's make sure that we make that clear, because we're going to have our say in a second. And then the last one. Now, what's that screen, Yara? Is it showing there? No, that blue screen thing.
You know, you can't see that.
All right. Well, I can't see either. What's behind it? Is it just covering his... Okay. I mean, I can't see, to be honest, but I think that this is just covering his head.
Yeah, there's no...
There's no tail or nothing, sah?
Oh, I don't know what this is, though. Is it coming from there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might be a separate cloth, because Sudanis, they like that kind of behavior, yeah? Right, there might be a separate cloth around the neck. I'm not too sure, but again, you've got now much clearer the shape there. Imagine that goes a bit higher up, and you can take it off now, Shaz. Imagine that goes a bit higher up, that triangle cut. Then you've got hair showing, and then you're allowed to wipe over that. So again, Shaykh Uthaymeen is saying that this was the nature of the turban at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, at the time of the Arab. Actually, this is of course something which is important, because there are some Muslims, and they are. And I want to say that they are probably the minority, easily the minority, and certainly academically it cannot stand. But basically they believe that to wear a turban is a sign of either an increased love of the Prophet ﷺ or increased imitation of the Prophet ﷺ, which itself is a highly rewarded act, of course. Or the most serious of all, these first two are not so serious, but we are going to come to that in a second. The third, which is the most serious of all, believing that wearing the turban in certain acts increases the reward of certain acts. Such as the one who wears this turban during the salah, it's increased by 70 times in reward. Or wearing a green turban is like this. I want to say to you straight off the bat, so that we don't waste any time, that there is not a single authentic hadith. Every single hadith which is narrated with respect to the turban, increasing the reward of an action, fasting or salah or this or that, or green or white or this, is all either fabricated or very weak. Alright, so it's not acceptable to wear a turban believing it increases the reward of an act. This is a bid'ah. This is legislating in a religion. You're saying, I'm going to do this to please Allah. If you're going to please Allah wearing a turban, you must have exact permission from the Prophet ﷺ to do that. Otherwise, you are legislating in the Prophet ﷺ's place. That's a dictionary definition of bid'ah. Okay? So I want to make that very clear. But most people, I think in my opinion, are from the simple people. They wear a turban not because they believe that there's a hadith or that there's this or that. They do it because they say that this is what we understand the Prophet ﷺ to have looked like, and this is what we understood his turban to be like, and we want to look like the Prophet ﷺ as much as possible. Now I want to say to you, this particular issue is a matter of difference amongst the scholars. You will always have two opinions, and you have the first opinion, which is that unless there's an evidence, we shouldn't do that. And at the same time, you have the other school, which is to say that, you know what, if a person wants to do that out of love of looking like the greatest man that there ever was, then why wouldn't you? And why wouldn't a person be rewarded for his intention, regardless of what happens at the end of it? Not because he's increasing his actions reward, but he just out of love. It's like when you see a style and a fashion on the street. I would like to wear, I'd like that t-shirt, I'd like to wear it like this, I want to wear my jeans like that, I want to wear my shoes like this, or whatever. You do it because you like something or you respect someone. That's why people use models and celebrities, because you want to look like them. So subhanAllah, why would you not want to look like the Prophet ﷺ if you had a good idea of what the Prophet ﷺ looked like, right? So I want to say to you that, and Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhuma, he is of course the leader of the second opinion. He used to copy the Prophet ﷺ in everything. He would look at the Prophet ﷺ, if he saw a button undone, he would undo the button. When in fact, actually the button was being undone because the Prophet ﷺ just wanted a bit of air. Right? But so Abdullah bin Umar is saying, you know what? I want a bit of air too. You know what I'm saying? And you can't fault him for that. How can you fault someone for that? I want to be like the Prophet ﷺ in every way. What's the correct position? There isn't really, it's not easy to say there's a correct position. Insha'Allah, and my taught position on this issue is that I believe that a person who copies the Prophet ﷺ out of love for him, he is rewarded fully for his intention. And that's my belief. But it cannot be believing that there's an extra reward in it, or that it increases his actions, but rather that he wants to be like the one that he loves, because the Nabi ﷺ said, you will be with the one that you love. Alright? So that's, I think, an okay point. And there's an important distinction there to make. Alright? Now, I know there's some questions, but I need to really move on, make sure that I cover at least more than 2 pages. Right? Okay, so Shaykh Al-Uthaymeen, he says that what is the dalil, what is the evidence of the Hanbali madhab to make this legal statement that you are only allowed to wipe over the turban if it has a loop under the neck, or loop under the chin, sorry I should say. You say under the neck. That's wrong, isn't it? It shouldn't say under the neck, it should say under the chin, shouldn't it really? What does loop under the neck mean? Isn't it? It's a bit lower, right? Yeah, I think it kind of just like, whereas under the chin would cover both, yes? I think we might change that. I think we might change that then, alright? Okay, so what is the evidence for doing that? What's the evidence for doing the tail? What is the evidence?
That's how they understood to be at the time.
That's it. That's the only evidence they have. And as you can imagine, that's going to get ripped apart. As you can imagine, that's going to get ripped apart. And so, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he is the one, as Shaykh al-Taymiyyah here says on the next page, he said, he goes, he is the one who went against this condition. He said, hold on, إِنَّهُ لَا دَلِيلَ الْأَشْتِرَاطِ أَن تَكُونَ مُحَنَّكَةٌ أَوْ ذَاتُ ثُعْبٍ. But there's no evidence whatsoever to condition that he needs to have this or he needs to have that. There's just no evidence, okay? And he says, and Shaykh al-Taymiyyah carries on, he says, look at the nas, look at the text. The text is imama. An imama is an imama. It should be left restricted until we have evidence to restrict it. So anything which is covering the head and it looks like a turban, then that is good enough. And once we've said that it is permissible to wipe over the turban, it's permissible to wipe over every turban. And this is an important point. He goes, if you want to understand the issue more, why scholars did condition those two things, what do you think? Put your scholarly hats on or turbans on, and think, why is it that they were quite kind of leaning towards putting extra kind of details on the turban?
Is it to prevent it going the other way, where you said that they could then give concession for other hairstyles or hats?
I don't think so, because we're going to be able to give a concession for others in a minute as well. This is to do the illah. What do you think the illah is here? Difficulty?
Taking something off and removing it and things like that.
Would you agree with that? Babs is saying that the illah is mashaqqa, difficulty, taking things off, So would you agree that one which is just, hat, take off, put back on, is a lot easier than that which is tied around the neck maybe 1-2 times? You need to untie it. I'm not too sure what the real issue is there, but maybe if you lifted it up with the tail, then it starts to unravel and so on. Yes? Shaykh Uthaymeen, he makes an interesting statement. He goes, وَلِأَنَّ الْحِكْمَةَ مِنَ الْمَسْحِ عَلَى الْعِمَامَ لَا تَتَعَيَّنُ فِي مَشَقَّةِ النَّزَعِ. He goes, frankly, we don't have any clear evidence to say that the only illah in wiping over the imama is to relieve difficulty, to relieve the difficulty of taking it off. There's no evidence to restrict it to that. He's basically saying there could be other reasons as well. If we were certain that the only illah is that it's because of difficulty, then yes, we can start building a case. But there's no evidence. There's no actually evidence to suggest that it's to do with pure difficulty as just that is just the illah. And Shaykh Uthaymeen, he carries on. وَلِأَنَّهُ لَوْ نَزَّعَ الْإِمَامَ. He goes, if a person was to take his imama off, then most of the time, what's going to happen? Okay, if he takes it off, he's going to get hot, he's going to get bothered, maybe get burnt, and he's going to maybe sweat. Okay? So he said that is the issue. He goes, this is what's more clearer to me from the illah, that basically you're taking it off and you're going to expose your head to X, Y, and Z. It's not necessarily, or if your head's cold and it blows, or this or that. It's just an unnecessary thing that you have to do. It's not necessarily that it's difficult to take off. Do you understand what I mean? You might be saying keep it on because it's a difficulty to take off. When we come to the hijab, the khimar, it's making sense that when you untie it, this, that, whatever, that's a mission, isn't it? And especially if someone's outside or whatever, but we'll come to that point separately as well. So what Shaykh al-Uthaymeen is saying, that it's not necessarily about the difficulty of taking it off, it's more possibly the difficulty of what happens once you take it off. And all the hassle. And it's for that reason that it's been allowed to remain on the head. So this is the point. So therefore, and then Shaykh Uthaymeen, he finishes off, he says that, and it is not obligatory to have to wipe on those parts of the head that are uncovered by the turban. In principle, it's obligatory to wipe over the head. Do you agree? It's an obligation in wudu. Please tell me yes. My goodness, I'm giving me a heart attack. Yeah. So it's an obligation to wipe over the head. What about the ears? What did we say? It's part of the head. Did we say it's part of the head? Where's people who've actually read their notes even once at least? Someone tell me from our notes, what's our taught position? What's our positions? Oh my God. No one remembers, huh?
If you believe that it's to do, you can put your finger, just put it in the middle of the ear.
That's the obligatory aspect. And the actual wiping of the entire ear itself is something which is a sunnah. Okay? So, and even by the way, even those who believe, as we said, we believe that it's not an obligation. Alright? But even those who do believe it's an obligation, okay, which is the majority of the scholar, the majority of the ai''imma, okay, then even they say that what the obligation is to get the fingers into the ears, as we demonstrated in the video and so on, yeah? And then even for them, the hole around the ear is an extra addition. So it's good to do that anyway, but I'm just saying. Now what Shaykh al-Uthaymeen is saying, if you've got an amama on, let's just make a rest quickly. Therefore, what's the taught position of the class with respect to a turban? That anything which is called a turban, it's allowed to wipe over. And I wasn't able to bring up the picture, but I think you've seen turbans which are rolled around but are just lifted up and put down again. Yes? They don't have a neck part, chin part, they don't have a tail. But those are permissible to wipe over. Because anything which is called a turban, it is permissible to wipe over. And that involves, and you know what? The Sudanese ones are the ones we're talking about here. Those guys, have you ever seen that one? That video of the guy who has to make his turban up? I might bring that video next week. It's a crazy video. So they make it up very quickly. It doesn't have a tail, doesn't have a front part, doesn't have a side part. You can wipe over that if there is a need. The point here now is if there's hair showing, hair at the back, Do you need to wipe over it because it's an obligation to wipe over your head? The answer is no. It's a sunnah to do that. It's something which is permissible. If you don't wipe on this part or those parts, then it's okay. If you did alongside the turban, that's fine. Is that clear, everybody? Is that clear? وَيُسْتَحَبُّ الْمَسْحُ عَلَى مَا ظَهَرَ. Anything, any hair which is showing, then it is recommended to wipe over that, and that's fine, inshallah. But obligatory, no. All right. And then وَعَلَى خُمُرِ النِّسَاء. And now upon the khimar of the nisa. All right. What's a khumur? Khumur is the plural of the word khimar. All right. Khimar is the singular. Khumur, and the word comes from khumra. The Arabic word of khimar and khumur, plural, comes from the Arabic word khumra. And the word khumra means that which covers something. That which covers something. And that's why when we call alcohol khamar, which comes from the same verb, it's because literally it covers your ability to think. Your faculty of thinking and reflecting and, normal intellectual faculties, they're sabotaged by the drink. They're covered completely. Alright? So the khimar of the mar'ah is that which is covering her head. Alright? And by that then we mean the headscarf. Not the hijab. You see, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The word hijab means so many different things for different people. Okay? Hijab is a state, not a cloth. But we call it that, which is covering the hair. I want to say to you that in Arabic, the word khimar is the only thing which physically covers the hair. That which physically covers the actual head itself is called the khimar. Is that clear, everybody? Okay. Has Isha entered? 1:15. You when you want to give the adhan? Now? Go ahead. For those online,
Allahu Akbar,
Sheikh
Allahu
Abdul
Akbar.
Ghaffar is not here for another week.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة.
لا حول ولا قوة.
حي على الصلاة.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
حي على الفلاح.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
حي على الفلاح.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة والمعة المقام والمحمود الذي وعدته. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Reminder again then that next week inshallah 8 o'clock BST is now 10:10 BST, so next week onwards 8 o'clock BST every lesson will be. I think we'll stop there in terms of the text because it's just at the beginning of the khimar, okay? And we'll just do now, I guess, some Q&A from online and anything that we have here.
Question online says that, can you clarify the exact terms for a thin socks?
So I want to say, the question is, can I clarify the exact term for a thin sock? I think that she means, or they mean in Arabic or in Sharia, there's no such thing. The word sock is jawrab, and then they mention either thick or safiq or khafif or thaqil. They just use general terms of thickness, thinness, thickness, thinness. So there's nothing like that. The majority of the A'immat al-Arba'a, the 4 Imams, as we mentioned last week, and you need to review that, okay, say that wiping over a thin sock is unacceptable. They want it to be strong enough to walk in. They want it to be standing up by itself. They want it to be completely free of any deficiency. We said that, look, it's not about walking miles and miles in a sock. It's about it being solid enough to stay up by itself. It's what everyone knows is a sock. It's not a tie, and it doesn't leak water, but it might get a bit of damp. Normal thin sock. And a picture I showed you is the one which is unacceptable. Anyone here?
Another question there.
Yeah.
In regards to imitation, it's basically said that imitating outside is restricted. What about indoors? Is that not restricted as well?
So imitating indoors is impermissible if it's done for the sake of imitation. If it is done for some other reason, of some display or whatever, amongst private, whatever, for some defined reason, then maybe there's some space for that.
In terms of the jilbab, what about school uniform when it comes to girls?
So I think again, it comes back down to, in principle, there never was this challenge of having to worry about a single cloth having to play the role of the jilbab, because by definition, jilbab itself means another layer of clothing, an outer kind of clothing, right? Like a jacket would be, or like a long dress coat or whatever. And so therefore, we're already kind of in a problematic area. So we're trying to make excuses that if someone's got really baggy clothes of some sort, then they might get away with it. But it is an issue, it is a problem. And certainly I don't think it's acceptable, personally. I don't think it's acceptable for a female to be going to school in just a shirt and a trousers. I believe that she should be trying to wear some kind of jilbab, or if that's not possible and she has no other option, then as baggy as clothes as possible. As baggy as clothes as possible. Yeah. Alright.
Just a question about some normal cotton socks that are okay to be massaged as well.
Yes, normal cotton socks are.
Yeah, but it doesn't like water can seep through the socks.
Water is going to seep through every material. Okay, it will go through. You're not meant to be washing your feet through the socks. Yeah, you've got just damp hands, and you're just going to. So your socks are going to be damp. Your socks are always going to be damp. So that's fine. That's fine. But you're not meant to be really kind of soaking your feet. All right. I want to say to Ibn Taymiyyah, even himself said, even water seeps through. So what? And the reality is that water is going to seep through. It's not about the water seeping through. And his argument, wallah, is very strong. Last week, can you imagine the companions who can't find cloth to cover themselves with? They've got socks that don't let water through. You're trying to buy socks that don't let water through in our time. They're costing like 20, 30 quid a pop. I can't buy socks that don't let water through. They're premium behavior, isn't it? Anyway, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's coming. Is that coming? Oh my gosh, did I forget that? No, I haven't forgot that. That's coming next week. But basically, the question is that what's the status of the wudu if you remove your turban? There's no problem. Just like the khuf, just like the socks. Remember we said if you take the socks off, it doesn't break wudu. Alright? It doesn't break wudu. And likewise, taking your turban off doesn't break wudu. But there is a difference between the turban and the khuf, in that you might be thinking that it's only permissible to wipe over the turban for 3 days or 24 hours. But as you're going to see next week, there is no tawqeet, there's no time limits for wiping over a turban. So unlike wiping over the socks, there is, but for the turban, if it's there, it gets wiped over. If it's not there, it doesn't. It's a different ruling. That's the position of Shaykh al-Uthaymeen. And that's our class position. It's coming next week.
And again, the same rule apply that it needs to be more in the state of the rule.
No, it doesn't. The question is that does the same rules apply that it needs to be put on in a state of wudu? No, the answer is not that at all. If a person, let me give you an example. Let's say that you have wudu and then you break wudu. and then you stay in that broken state of wudu for 2 hours, and then you find a turban and you put it on and you go outside, okay, and now you're making wudu, you can still wipe over that turban even though you were not in wudu when you put it on, because the turban and this is it's unlike the sock, exactly, and this is how it's unlike the sock, and that's what Shaykh Uthaymeen will talk about next week. Make sense? Yeah. So
say you put on like clean socks and shoes and then you went hiking with your boots and stuff.
yes,
So initially for Zuhur you wipe over your shoe.
yes, and it was above the ankle, of course. It was a boot, yeah.
Yeah. And then later on you took your shoe off. Can you wipe over your sock then, or does it have to be just the shoe? Could you initially wipe over the shoes?
So that's going to come next week, inshallah. That's not next week, actually, in a couple of weeks. That's a much more detailed issue about what happens when you remove. First of all, is it permissible for a person to carry on praying in that? Yes. Does it break the wudu by taking off the actual shoe? No, it doesn't. That's fine as well. Do some ulama allow you to wipe over the sock? Yes, they do. It is allowed to wipe over the sock if you put that sock on in a state of wudu. But then if you were to put on the shoe back again and try wiping over the shoe, that would not be allowed. But that's not your question. Your question is, if you remained in just the socks, could you then make wipe over them? And you will see that we will lean towards the opinion that is permissible, but there's a lot of detail in that. Okay, and I think we'll call it at that, inshallah. As I said, Sheikh Abdul Ghaffar is not here, so there will be no salah on the TV. 8 o'clock BST next week, inshallah. Notes are on the forums and haven't been checked by myself. And I think that's pretty much about it. Jazakumullah khair. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك اللهم وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.